After 2 games and a slew of spin-offs with which to experiment, Kirby's Dream Land 2 marked the point where our hero made his triumphant return to the Game Boy, in what I think is one of the most streamlined and well-designed games in the early series. The story is that an evil monster known as Dark Matter has arrived at Popstar. Jealous of Dreamland's happy and carefree lifestyle, he steals the Rainbow Bridge of the Rainbow Island and then possesses King Dedede in order to, you guessed it, take over the world.
Of course!
This forces Kirby to set off to stop him. Again, there's not too much of a story here, but Kirby has never really been about the plot, has it? This game introduced several new features to the Kirby series while getting rid of some others. The overworld map from Kirby's Adventure makes a return here, but in a much more understated way. This time, it's simply a screen to select your levels, which are all laid out in easy reach on the field. The minigames make a return, this time replacing the boss chambers after you defeat them. We also got a new collecting system, kinda like coins in Super Mario Bros., but with a much higher exchange rate. Every 7 stars you find, it gives you an extra life, which is a nice middle ground to reward players who explore without having it always just be healing items or 1-ups. The biggest addition in this game are the all-new animal friends that can accompany Kirby on his quest. During development, they were originally called Minions and actually included a small tank at one point, but the developers felt riding cute animals fit the character of Kirby better, and the final roster consists of Rick the hamster, Coo the owl, and Kine the sunfish. Rescuing any of these characters modifies how you're able to move around, and they each come with advantages and disadvantages. Rick can walk on ice without sliding, but lacks the ability to fly. Coo can fly against wind currents, but is pretty useless underwater, and Kine allows Kirby to inhale enemies and fly against water currents, but is pretty much crippled on land. But he is a fish, so what do you expect? Their names even represent their respective domains of expertise. Riku for land, Coo for air, and Kai for sea. So I guess you could call them the Land, Sea, Air Squad. Nah, that's stupid. The choice of powers has also been drastically reduced. Rather than giving the player an overwhelming array of powers and hoping they'll find something fun, Dreamland 2 takes the alternate route by giving the player a smaller selection of powers, but making them all useful. Instead of the 24 abilities from Kirby's Adventure, there's only 7, and they're all carried over from the previous game. But based on which animal friends you're using at the time, they do different things. Spark, for example, functions like it does in Kirby's Adventure, but if you're using Rick, it functions like Beam. Same story with Fireball, or Burning as they started to call it in this game. So this was HAL's first step toward consolidating similar powers into one, a theme that would continue in later games. The game is also a bit shorter than Kirby's Adventure, with slightly smaller levels and less per stage, but the core gameplay more than makes up for it with its level design and difficulty. That's right, I said difficulty in a Kirby review. If you hope to get 100% in this game, be ready to hate yourself. The replay value this time comes in the form of rainbow drops, which must be collected in order to get the true ending. There's one hidden in each world of the game, tucked away in one of the levels. And you aren't told which level it is, so it's up to you to search each alcove and hope for the best. Of course, you could check an online walkthrough, but that's kind of cheating, isn't it? When you manage to find them, they're usually hidden in such a way that requires a specific power to reach them, and that's where the real brilliance of this game comes into play. Oftentimes, only a specific power used by a specific animal friend can access the rainbow drop, so the level is designed in such a way so as to make that friend and power combination the most difficult to use, like having to lead Kine across a tricky platforming segment even though switching to someone like Coo would make it a lot easier. This is the kind of challenge that exists for people who really want to get the most out of the game, but it can still be enjoyed by younger and less skilled gamers who just want to have fun, which I think is the best way to design games like this. The final boss is King Dedede, who now has new attacks like the ability to shoot air blasts and throw his hammer, but if you keep your distance and watch his pattern, you can make short work of him. Once you manage to defeat him, the game ends. Unless, of course, you manage to get all 7 rainbow drops, in which case you face the true final boss. And as easy as Kirby games usually are, Dark Matter is quite possibly one of the hardest bosses in Kirby history. I think what makes him so hard is the fact that he takes so little damage from anything, and you have to fight him twice without dying. His second form requires even more hits, taking maybe half a bar of damage every time you swing your sword. And then to top it all off, you're on a time limit! Yeah, the entire time you're fighting him, you're actually falling back down to the planet, and if you don't defeat him in time, you hit the ground and die. You'd be insane to try to fight him this way, but believe it or not, I actually managed to do it when I was in 5th grade, literally during recess at school. It wasn't until years later that I discovered the true secret. If you manage to knock his own stars back at him, they deal a massive amount of damage. Using this method, you can pretty much kill him in about 20 seconds. Oh geez, I wish I knew about that in grade school. I really like this game, but there are a few aspects that still kind of bug me. The The Meta Knights are here, but Meta Knight himself isn't, and they always seem to taunt you with their really cool weapons that you can't actually use. The axe, the Morning Star. The sword in particular always annoyed me because you were able to use it in the last game, but not here. The closest thing we have is Parasol, but I don't want an umbrella, I want a sword. Another thing that bugged me about this game is the bosses. Once you defeat them, their stage turns into a bonus round where you have to collect stars and avoid hazards. But you're not able to go back and fight them over again, and that really sucks because Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright are back. They were my favorite. There is a boss rush mode where you fight them all in a row without healing, but that's not really the same. There were a couple of other bosses that were introduced too, like the Ice Dragon and Ruff and Nelly. Ruff never really sat well with me. He always just seemed like a poor man's Lololo. Jeez, this game has some weird names. This was also the first game in the series to use the Super Game Boy's border and palette features, which does add some nice cosmetic color effects, especially in the final screen. But these features are completely non-existent when played in the Dream Collection, which seems really stupid to me. I mean, it can't be all that hard to emulate the game with the Super Game Boy features, right? Yeah, I'll talk more about this when it comes time to review the actual Wii collection, because now it's time for the best and worst powers of the game. Now, while there are only 7 abilities in this game, each one has 4 different methods of attack, for a total of 28 if you count all the different variants. The most absurdly broken power is Ice when used by Kine. It causes him to be surrounded in a shield of ice, similar to the Freeze ability from Kirby's Adventure, except with no recovery frames. So basically, you have an invincible shield that you can activate at will. Don't hold it down too long though, or it'll backfire. But if you button mash, it will essentially make you indestructible. It's even pretty decent against bosses because ice cubes deal about as much damage as stars, so it's at least as good as fighting him with normal Kirby, plus you can hit him with a normal attack if you get close enough. This power rocks! As for the worst, I hate to pick on it again, but Needle has never had a good track record in these games, and I think Rick's is the weakest version I've seen so far. It's the only power in the game that only attacks backward, which forces you to turn around and break your stride every time there's an enemy to kill. Not only that, the range on this thing is pathetic. I think there's maybe one segment where you're forced to use this combination, but as soon as it's over, drop Needle for pretty much anything else. Kirby's Dream Land 2 is an excellent entry in this series, and one that's well worth owning for any fans of Kirby. It took everything that was established in the original and just expanded on it in the best way possible. It combines the copy abilities from Kirby's Adventure with the simplified level structure of Kirby's Dream Land to make a game that is just a joy to play, and I still whip this out from time to time when I'm bored. Kirby's popularity would only continue to grow, and it wouldn't be long before he started to spread into areas other than video games.